Hello and welcome to Sacred Psychology, the podcast for misfits and mystics. Here, neuroscience and spirituality go hand in hand. Join me, Tamara Powell, on a no-holds-barred adventure outside the box, because that's where all the truly great shit happens anyway. Welcome back to Sacred Psychology. I'm your host, Tamara Powell. This is the show where we dive into the intersections between mind, body, and spirit, especially as it pertains to mental health and wellness. My guest today, Joe Mintzer, knocks it out of the park regarding all of those. I kid you not when I say that this is probably one of my most favorite conversations to date, especially this season. So Joe has a unique story. He had been addicted to drugs by the age of 13 and was selling cocaine by the time he was 21. He definitely had a life of ups and downs, and it wasn't until after having a massive panic attack at age 38 that he found meditation. Joe knew that with meditation, he would be able to escape the pain that had been causing him to lead an unfulfilled life and embrace a life with more fulfillment than ever before. Joe learned how by focusing one's thoughts, you can unlock the power that has been holding you back. Joe holds a certificate in spiritual psychology. How cool is that? And he has made it his life mission now to inspire others to know that no matter what their backstory is, they too can become successful in life. He started Sporadic Warrior. I love that name. It's a program to help recovering addicts maintain their sobriety through meditation and fitness. And so without further ado, I bring you my interview with the one, the only, the ever incomparable Joe Mintzer. Hey, Joe, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you for having me.
Oh, I'm super excited about this one. You have such a great story, and I can't wait to hear more about it.
And I can't wait to tell all your listeners.
So, for those of us who haven't been able to stalk you as much as I have, tell us a little bit more about you and what you're passionate about.
Well, right now I'm in the early processes of creating a new form of community for people who are in recovery. So people who have been through the first 3 to 6 months of recovery and are now moving into the stages of, well, what do I do when I have all this free time?
Yeah.
That's where I'm at right now, is creating a program for that that's combined with fitness, meditation, spirituality, where you're out in the public, you have some one-on-one coaching involved in it. And it's just a new way for people to move forward so that they stay sober as opposed to going back their old ways.
Yeah, it's so important because those first few months are really tricky. And I think if you don't take a more holistic view, you're going to end up fucking up somewhere along the way.
I agree wholeheartedly. For me, my first 3 to 6 months were more about moving into a place of acceptance that I had an issue. Mm-hmm. And after that, it was like, well, okay, I understand I have an issue. I understand that I've had an addiction, that I've gone through all this stuff in my past. Well, where do I go now? Where do I move forward? How do I create a new community around me in order to stay in this environment moving forward? And I found that a lot of the people who I've talked to, and I talk to, former addicts all the time, that this is a major issue. Mm-hmm. They feel that there's no place, even though there is AA and NA in these communities, they feel that there's no place where they can just go and they don't have to talk about that stuff, but yet they can be involved. And then there's that background of it.
Yeah, I really have a love-hate relationship with 12-step programs that I'd like to get into a little bit later with you for sure. I own my bias right up front with all my clients. But back me up a little bit. How did your addiction journey begin, and where did it finally hit that turning point for you?
Well, it's a long story, but I'll shorten it down. When I was 13, a friend of a friend introduced me to crack cocaine. So that was the first drug I ever did.
Are you serious? Like no marijuana, just
no, nothing, just crack. Right into hardcore. Yeah, there was no leeway. There was no leeway for me.
That's scary because my youngest turns 13 this month.
Yeah, well, I'm a rarity, but it was there. It was an awkward point in my life. It was where I didn't really feel involved. I was very overweight at the time, and I felt very embarrassed to be me. And that happened to be there, and it gave me, a journey into a different realm, a different view of myself. And that continued on through high school until I worked in nightclubs around 21, and then eventually ended up getting arrested for selling cocaine at 21.
Wow.
In Florida. And going through that whole process and going through several different treatment programs in between then and 25, it really gave me an eye-opening experience as to where my life was and what was going on at that time. And when I look back at it now, people always ask me, where is the defining moment? Like, where is the moment where you just went, I can't do this anymore? And I said, well, it's not one moment. It's a couple of moments over your life, and you have them on different things. Like for drugs, at me, it was 25, but I stopped drinking much later. So right. I stopped one drug and just put it onto another, right?
Mm-hmm.
But at 25, I was coming off of heroin. I was in Ocala, Florida. And I was on the phone with my aunt, and I said, I'm not supposed to be here. I'm not supposed to be in this rehab facility. And I'm going through detox. And she goes, if you walk out of there right now, you are completely cut off from anyone in our family, your mother, your father. No one will ever talk to you again if you step foot outside of that facility.
That's hardcore.
Yeah. That's what I thought. But you got to think also too, is up until that point, I was enabled.
Mm-hmm.
My family had my back. They would, pay for rent if I spent my money on drugs. There was a long process that went on with it, but, they would help out, and they thought that they were doing the right thing. But what they didn't realize at the time was that was really not helping the situation. And over that, I ended up leaving that facility, even with all that on me, and ended up walking about 10 miles up a road in Ocala, to wait at a Publix grocery store for a money order that God placed his hand on and just didn't allow to get there. From one of my best friends that I was growing up with, sent me $100, and it never arrived. And I was forced to face what was going on.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't know what to do. I was out on my own. I had no place to sleep. I had no money in my pocket. I was a smoker at the time. I had no cigarettes, no food, and I didn't know what to do. So I actually called the cops and, pretended to commit suicide on the phone. I told them, if you don't come pick me up, I'm going to walk out into traffic.
Damn.
Yeah. And they came and got me. In Florida, they have, as you know, might know, the Baker Act. Yep. Mm-hmm. So I got 72 hours of free mental health care. And then ended up.
Well, they love to send you a bill afterwards, but
yeah, I never received mine. It must have got lost in the mail, or maybe I just didn't pay attention to it.
You are very blessed in that, my friend, because it's usually at least $3,000. So
yes, yeah, it was an experience, I can tell you that. But at that moment is when my eyes really opened to what was going on. And even though that was just one moment in life, that moment there, before I went into a rehab facility for about 6 months down there called Phoenix House.
Mm-hmm. That is.
Yeah. It's a great place. And that started my journey to where I am now. But that journey was over 13 years.
Yeah, I love that you point out that it wasn't just one defining moment, that it is a series of moments. I think that that's really true for the vast majority of us. Even those that may have had a big moment that finally was the final catalyst to getting them into recovery. I think if they look back, they can see the trail of breadcrumbs that was, further pushing them in that direction.
I agree. And also, once you're at that point in life, I was at that point, but then later on, I realized that until I figured out why I started using drugs in the first place, I couldn't actually heal from using drugs.
Oh, for sure.
I couldn't get past that point.
Otherwise, you end up with that behavioral substitution like you were talking about, just one thing for another.
Correct. Yeah, that's absolutely correct. And I watch people go through it all the time. And, I sit with them and I talk to them, and I'm like, well, I'll ask them sometimes, how does that make you feel, or where are you moving forward with this, or how have you dealt with this in the past? And we'll go through a couple of processes, and I'll sit there with them and process this information with them. And a lot of times they end up crying. I end up crying with them. It can be in a very intense connection at certain points. And it's beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, I think that if you don't heal those parts of you, you'll always have that guilt, and it'll always cause you to go back out.
Yeah, it becomes this negative reinforcement cycle. I feel badly, so I have to act out, which then leads me to feeling more badly, which then I gotta act out again. It's really hard to get off that vicious cycle unless you take a look at why the hell you're there in the first place. So for you, was it the body image issues in puberty?
Well, it was a couple things. So that was part of it. It was also that I was picked on a lot through middle school and high school. And I was a very sweet kid up until that point. And then I started getting picked on through middle school and high school. And that image kind of took over in my head that I was worthless, that I was ugly, that nobody wanted to be around me. Nobody wanted to be my friend. And I hid in like a world. I'm a very extroverted person. And at that time in my life, I hid from everyone because I was so embarrassed of who I was. You know, I just didn't know how to get out of that shell. So drugs and alcohol mainly gave me the stepping stone out of that shell into what people became to think I was for the next 10 to 15 years.
Yeah, for sure. So were you functioning along that decade or two?
So there's two different levels for me. When I was using drugs heavily, I was not functioning. I would have a job, but in reality, I would lose a job every 2-3 months. So I was not a functioning person in society. Once I had cleaned up my act for a temporary period there for about 6 or 7 months. And, I maintained pretty much just drinking for about, I want to say 5 or 6 years after that, until it turned very ugly. And then I was a functioning alcoholic. I would wake up and start my day with 3-4 shots of vodka at least.
Damn.
Just to even get. And what's funny is, well, actually, it's not really funny, but
it's ironic, maybe.
It's ironic is that it wasn't to get drunk. A lot of people think that people who have an issue will drink because they need to feel drunk. For me, it was so much anxiety every morning that I would wake up. I'd feel this intense anxiety. I'd have a heart range of 140 to 150 beats per minute just waking up out of bed.
Oh, you poor thing.
Waking into a state of panic. Yeah. And to get through that, I mean, just thinking about it right now gives me chills.
For sure.
People who talk about, a lot of times, that's one of my things that I didn't like about AA when I was in AA years ago, was that the glorification that happened out there, and the way that alcohol and drugs are spoken about. And one of the things that I tell people who ask me, how I deal with my issues, is when I think about drinking, when I think about drugs, I don't think about the high. I think about the next day. I think about waking up in the morning with 150 beat per minute heart rate, can't breathe, feel like the world's closing in. That's where my feeling goes. And with that, instantaneously brings me into a point of disgust with any alcohol or drug.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense because, that anxiety from my more holistic lens is really, it comes down to living incongruently. You said you were a really sweet kid before all of this shit hit the fan. And, then you kind of had to adjust and adapt to become something that you weren't, just to survive. But you can't really fool your psyche or your soul. So it becomes this nasty, vicious cycle.
There was about, I think it was in October. It might have been August. Actually, I take that back. It was August of 2017. I was inside of a program called Insight. I don't know if you're familiar with it.
Tell our listeners a little bit more about it.
Sure. They work through processes of getting you out of your comfort zone. We have as a society, have a general issue never leaving our comfort zone. We'll be in a job for years. We'll be in a life pattern for years, or an image, an ego that we have created for ourselves that we live behind. They kind of teach you how to get out of that and how to accept it. The best way that I can explain it is when you start out as a kid, you've got this little lunchbox. And inside of this lunchbox are all your problems. You get to high school, it turns into a backpack. After you're, graduate high school, you get to college, then all of a sudden it's like, one of those little roller cases.
Yeah.
And you go through a marriage, a divorce, kids. Next thing you know, you've got like a rucksack, like an army rucksack on your back. They take that entire rucksack away and burn it. And it's just gone. And all that stuff you've been carrying with you for your entire life is no longer important.
I love it.
Yeah, it was life-changing for me. For me, I stood up in front of a crowd of, I believe it was about 250 people. And I had a long beard when I started the program. I had long hair down past my shoulders. And over the course of the program, I had realized, and it's only 5 days, but I realized that I had been hiding behind a tough guy image most of my life because of stuff as a kid. So I created this image of, I'll kick your ass. I'm this guy, I'm going to go out there and beat the crap out of you. And the reality is I've never been a fighter. I've always, I've never been a tough guy.
Yeah.
But if you ask people who knew me over my life, they go, oh yeah, Joe, yeah, he's a badass. No, I'm not. No, I'm not at all. I'm one of the most sensitive people you'll ever meet in your entire life. I get worried about certain things that people say all the time. But nobody knew that because they just knew this image that I put out there.
Right.
The leather jacket, the beard, the ponytail, all this stuff. And on the last day, I shaved it all off. So I went down to like a short haircut, the way you see me now. And it was just beautiful. I was on the microphone, and a friend of mine was on a microphone across from me, and we're standing there, and his name is Ryan, and we were standing there, and we were both connected in this energy field right across from each other. The room is filled with so much energy. And when you step into a place of vulnerability and you just are your true self and you're right there at that moment, that feeling is so amazing. It's undescribable. No drug I've ever done in my life has come to that feeling.
Yes. Oh, that true transcendence. That
pure bliss.
That's addicting. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
In a good way.
Yeah, yeah, it is. Yes. Yes.
Damn.
It was beautiful. And I'll tell you something real quick. His name, Ryan, he walked up to me after the seminar and he goes, did you feel that energy transfer between the two of us? And I said, yeah, I did. And I absolutely did. And he's also 6'4". He's my height.
Wow.
And I said, yeah, I did. And he goes, well, let's exchange numbers. And I said, fine. And the last 4 digits, my number are 5172 and his are 5172.
No.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's incredible. And just hearing 2 grown-ass men talk about energy transfer is just so titillating to me. I'm like, yeah. It's fantastic. It doesn't, wussify anything. It's great to be able to, once again, step outside of the box and expand our view a little bit. Because I think that's something else that addiction does of any kind. It doesn't even just have to be to drugs and alcohols. That really kind of creates this myopic field in the brain where we just get really narrow-minded. We're really centered, focused on just that one thing, and really it's a survival mechanism. But so for someone like yourself to be able to go through this healing process and to be able to once again expand your view and even to be able to be aware of energy in the room is just, so good.
The energy in that room is so intense that when you walk into you can feel it vibrating.
Mm-hmm.
It's amazing.
And that's all the universe is vibration.
Correct. And to watch people of all different race, background, religion, sexual orientation, all be in the same room, all open, all vulnerable, all in the loving. Amazing. Absolutely amazing.
Right. So let's stir the shit pot a little bit then, because I think that's what 12-step programs attempt to do. And I think sometimes they do get there. I think, I know the research shows that the reason that they are effective is because of the social support and the accountability. However, beyond that, I would just love to hear your thoughts. What have been your experiences with NAAA? Be brave, be vulnerable.
I'll be honest with you. So the 2 most powerful words in the human language, I believe, are I am.
Mm-hmm.
When you put a negative connotation after it of alcoholic or addict,
yes,
on a day-to-day basis as a daily affirmation,
yes,
it's the worst possible thing you can do, in my opinion.
I knew we were going to get along, Joe. Yes,
it blows my mind, and I'm not the only one who feels this way. People I talk to all the time have told me the same thing. They're like, "What's the biggest thing you hate about AA?" And they're like, "I don't like standing up and saying I'm an alcoholic." It served it. Don't get me wrong. The first time you do it, you are coming into a place of acceptance. You need that place.
I agree. The first couple of weeks. All right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But after that, you need a place to move on. You need a stepping stone to move forward and out of that negativity and into a positive place and into a loving place. And it just doesn't seem to be there.
Yeah. I just find that it keeps my clients really stuck. So they may move forward, but the whole just repeating of that mantra, it really is an affirmation. And so as a therapist, to go on a slight tangent, one of my favorite ways of working with the psyche is through internal family systems theory. And it really is all about creating a sense of separation through mindfulness between you and whatever follows that I am statement. So it's not you that is depressed right now. You are having a physiological sensation of the neurochemicals associated perhaps with depression. But the real you, whatever it is that is Joe, is not his thoughts, feelings, or behaviors. You're the soul's, don't care, spirit, conscious awareness, whatever your worldview is, that's in this flesh and blood meat suit, right? Experiencing all this shit at times. And it may be fantastical shit or it could be really shitty shit. And so we start to take a look at, the different parts of us that may come forward. Like right now, I've got parts of me that are associated with podcasting and therapy that are out. But after this, and I may go, hang out and watch a scary movie with my kiddo, it's going to be very different parts of me that are associated. So I have a strong bias against attaching any label of any kind to that conscious awareness or the soul or the spirit. And I have seen way too many clients get stuck and they end up giving me these freaking pageant girl answers to questions in the therapeutic room, just quoting from the big book or whatever. And again, it serves its purpose. I think especially working the steps at least once through can be really powerful because it really, opens the lid on a lot of stuff that you may have been shoving in the back closet of your psyche for too long. But past that point, I just think, I'm okay with clients continuing with it, but you need to be very, very careful of what you're telling yourself is true about yourself.
So, I happen to agree with you in so many ways. It's mind-blowing. But one of the things
cheers
that I
to that.
Yeah, cheers to that. Exactly. A lot of times when I meet people, I said, "Oh, it's so nice to meet another survivor." And they always ask me, "What do you mean?" I said, "You fought and battled through one of the hardest things in life."
Yeah.
Most people don't realize how hard you have struggled to get here, man. Be proud of yourself. And be ecstatic. Wake up, look in the mirror, and tell yourself, you have been through one of the hardest things in life, but guess what? You made it. And you're amazing. I love you. Go out and start today. Have a positive day. Give some random person a hug if you feel like it. Do whatever you got to do. But put some positive
I almost dare you to.
Yeah, seriously. And actually with AA, what always killed me is, yes, you're standing up and you're letting a lot of things out. And there's a lot of compassion stories that come out in AA, right? The problem is there's nobody to talk to about it in that moment.
Right.
So you stand up, you grab the mic, you talk.
A monologue.
Yeah. And you tell your story. And a lot of times as people giving a pitch, I feel, sometimes when they're up there.
Sure.
And then there's no one-on-one. So you can't get to the true cause of it. So you just brought up this whole issue from your past, this big weight that's been laying on you for all these years. And you have nobody there to get it across to you afterwards. You might have a sponsor that you can reach out to, but is that sponsor trained in this particular kind of situation to help you get through this? Chances are probably not. Sometimes it is. And not that there's not a benefit to a sponsor in an emergency situation when you're at that point.
Right.
And that's why I said this program I'm starting is more for later on in recovery than it is for the initial stages, is because at that point, that's where people are trying to move forward. But I feel that it could be done better. It could be done differently. And I think that in my experience from the people that I've spoken to, and I think that when you step into this form of a light, when you step into the light and God sees that you're moving on this particular path, that he will or she will put people who, depending on your views, put people in your path to help you along this way. And I've run into people all the time. I've never run into so many addicts in my life, so many former addicts in my life than I have until I opened up into this and started asking, and I'm like, well, what are you doing? How are you getting through it? What's your problem with it? And they go, well, I feel that AA is very old fashioned. it was very good
model
40, 50 years ago. Yeah. And then I think we need something moving forward. And, they ask me what I do. And I say, I meditate daily. And that's not the cure-all, of course. There's a lot of things that go into it, but just setting the tone in a positive way first thing when you wake up changes your entire day.
It's freaking brilliant. I mean, it shuts down the entire default mode network in the brain, which is so important. That space of ego. And once again, creating a little distance between me and the whatever I am currently believing is my story or my problems. So I love that you bring up that it would really be helpful to have a coach or a therapist alongside, the 12-step model. And I know that, the good groups do encourage such a thing, but that monologuing is a very fascinating concept that I don't think I've talked about much on the podcast. I attended back in grad school a Sex Addicts Anonymous, which is also 12-step, based on NA and AA, being sexuality being one of my specializations. And it was just fascinating to sit back and watch these. It was supposed to be a mixed group, but there was all men, which is really common in the group. These men sit back and tell their stories. And it was just so rehearsed that I was almost like, what the hell are we doing? It felt like just a labeling. It was like these men's psyches had become so attached to the story and not, I'm like, can we pick our heads up and be talking about where are you right now? Where are you going? And how are we really going to survive? Yeah. So I'm just really happy that you mentioned the whole monologuing aspect of it and the danger and just staying there.
Yes.
Now what?
You're living in the past. You're living in the past. Yeah. It's time to let that, for lack of a better term, let that shit go.
Yeah. That's a good term.
And move forward. I mean, you have to move forward at some point in life. At some point, you have to accept the fact that what you did in the past is not what defines you. It's just a part of your past. That's it.
It was a coping mechanism. It was actually quite logical, just unhelpful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, correct. And actually, I'll tell you, I took a year away from any kind of relationship when I first got sober.
Yeah.
And no sex, nothing for a year.
My hat's off to you. That's hard.
Yeah, it was pretty rough. I'm not gonna lie. But it was something that I felt had to be done because when you're in the stage of drinking and drugs, you're going from person to person. You're having those one night stands. You're going through those kinds of relationships, and there's just no affection there. So you have to take. I would need to take that time in order to find out what I truly want in a relationship.
I was going to say, do you even know what you're looking for? And from that mindset, probably not.
No, I didn't at that time. I do now, but I didn't at that time.
That's big. So what did you come to learn about yourself through the recovery process? Who are you?
I am a strong, outspoken, vulnerable, sensitive man.
Tender warrior.
Tender warrior is probably one of the best terms I've heard used for it. I learned that no matter what I'm feeling on a day-to-day basis, that it's okay to show emotion, no matter where I am. Just recently, I broke down on an airplane and I was crying on an airplane and this woman touched my shoulder. She goes, "You okay?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm fine." I just had something come up and, I thought about it and I worked through it and
letting it go.
Yeah. Letting it go. Every day for me is a process and every day I learn something new about myself and I learn to love myself more through that process. But it's understanding where the emotions come from that help you move forward, I think.
And I really think that it is tough to be a man in our culture, especially Western culture. I think there's a lot of toxic masculinity going around. What do you think?
Well, there's a stigma. So it's funny that you bring that up. There's a stigma with men and vulnerability and sensitivity. And there's a part of us that feels that we're supposed to put on the show for women, where we're supposed to be a tough guy. Hence how I lived my life for a very long time.
A lot of women buy into that bullshit too.
Yeah. I've had women tell me, "You're going to let this guy talk to me." And I'm like, "Well, you're the one who started the fight with him."
Yeah.
Why do I got to get involved in it? You're the one who started the issue.
Yeah.
But there's definitely that issue there. There's that part of men that feel that we're supposed to, put that forward. I know that I felt it over periods of time, but I can tell you that in the course that I was in over the past year, the spiritual psychology course, one of the most common things women said to me especially when I was in a group, like a one-on-one, but there's an additional person there. So it's called a trio. Mm-hmm. When we were in trios, they would say, it's so amazing to see a man be this vulnerable. Mm-hmm. And it's because they've never seen it. But with men, a lot of times we do get vulnerable, but it will be with our friends only. Like with another man, we'll open up to like one specific guy. Right. That's all going on in our place. But we won't do it in front of women because we feel that we're supposed to have this presence of strength and this presence of power, and that being vulnerable is perceived as being weak, which is the exact opposite.
So true. And could we not just please redefine what strength and masculinity and power look like?
Yes. I consider myself a very manly man, just because I'm vulnerable and open up and express my true feelings, and I'm open to conversation and not afraid to bring up a topic with somebody that I'm involved with. Doesn't make me any more or less of a man. Mm-hmm.
And I'm telling you, I mean, mating behaviors is kind of my specialty. Women really do crave that tender warrior, and it's a tall order. And it's true in reverse as well. I think we have a lot of toxic femininity culture going on, and women are groomed to really struggle with trying to both be confident and assertive without being bitchy, but also be able to express their feelings and want to be protected, taken care of. And I could hear some of my listeners cringing already. So, I mean, I'm like, that friggin' proves my point. Right?
I will tell you from my own personal view that I think that a woman who's intelligent, straightforward, outgoing, goal-orientated is so sexy.
And the research backs you up on that. You're not the only one. In fact, across time, space, and all cultures, confidence is the number one thing both sexes are looking for.
Yeah, insecurity is a huge turnoff.
Oh, so gross. I don't care who you are. Yeah. But and I think insecurity presents itself in a host of ways, including what we're talking about today, addiction. If I'm insecure, it is so easy to reach for a stimulant or even that liquid courage in alcohol.
Oh, yeah. I lived my day like that. I lived my relationships like that. There was a relationship I was in at one point where I wouldn't even go into her house without having a couple shots of vodka or whiskey or whatever, because I felt that she only knew me in that light and that image. And so I had to maintain that image, and that if I was sober, she wouldn't see that image. So the image ruled me. It ruled my life. It was terrible. It was terrible.
So talk to me then about how you found integration through meditation. How did you come to merge? I mean, clearly that was part of you, the outgoing and the tough guy, the warrior side, but then you had the tenderness, the sensitivity, the insecurities, all those demons in your closet. How did you come to integrate all of them?
When I stopped drinking, it's actually not when I stopped drinking. I got into an argument with my boss at the time. And it set off a trigger inside of me and sent me into a very large panic attack. So in an effort to calm down the panic attack, I had a bottle of vodka. Then I had another bottle of vodka.
Holy shit.
Yeah. And I couldn't calm down. My heart rate was still at about like 148, 150. So I ended up in the hospital. And they did what hospitals do. They medicated me with Ativan. And then just released me right back out the door.
Because that fixed you, yes. We calmed your heart rate. Good luck.
Yeah, didn't put me in with anybody to talk to or anything like that. It's just took me right back out of the door, and I was stumbling out of there, no less, because of course the vodka's still there, and now you have Ativan on top of it.
Oh my god!
Yeah, and
our medical system needs a whole overhaul too, but we'll save that podcast for another day.
Yeah, that's a whole nother issue altogether. But I come to a place at that time in my life where I was like, all right, this is not going to work. The next day I woke up, my aunt flew into town. And she sat with me and she cleaned my apartment. My apartment was a mess. There was like clothes everywhere. And she sat with me and she held on to me and she said, what are you going to do? And I was like, this just isn't working for me anymore. I can't live like this anymore. And she goes, yeah. She goes, I hear you. It's time for a change. And that's like my aunt too. She's like, I hear you.
Your aunt sounds amazing.
She is amazing. She's a spiritual coach. She's my spiritual guide. She's an amazing woman. Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah. So we talked through a bunch of processes, and we went through a bunch of stuff. And the next day, there was a meditation group around the corner from my apartment, and I walked over there, and I sat down, and I meditated for the first time. And it was in that meditation, I felt so at ease in myself. I felt all the anxiety, all the worry just lift away.
Mm-hmm.
And I went, okay, this can have a significant impact on my life. This can really make a difference. And, it's a lot of times people say that people I've talked to about meditation have told me that it takes them like 2 weeks before they get the effects of it. I don't disagree with that, but for me, it hit right away.
Mm-hmm.
Because I was in a place where I was open to it and I was vulnerable to it. And
I think you were ready.
Yeah, I was ready. You got it.
Yeah.
And I opened up to that. And through meditation, I start my meditation every day the same way, asking for, God to clear anything that's been around me and to show me anything that's for my greatest good that should be worked on over the day. And then I go into a 4-4-4 breathing technique for the first 10 to 15 breaths.
So you hold your breath for 4 and then let it out for 4?
Correct. In 4, hold for 4, out for 4.
Yep.
And then I usually meditate for about 10 to 15 minutes, and whatever comes present for me.
You silent meditate?
Correct. Well, no, actually, I silent meditate sometimes, but I really like Tibetan bowls in the background. But when I first started, it was guided meditation.
Yeah, I always recommend guided at first because it's really hard to get used to the idea for a lot of people.
Until you find your internal tone, it's just easier to start with a guided meditation. I wholeheartedly agree. Yeah, it was amazing. And I tell you what, I found out that now I could paint. I've got paintings all over my apartment.
Look at you.
Yeah, I meditate, and then while I'm meditating, an image will come to me and I'll paint it.
So not only did you integrate, you found new parts of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
So wander me through then how you ended up coming across the certificate in spiritual psychology.
So I was involved in Insight. I had just gotten out of Insight 1, met up with Ryan. My friend Ryan had told me he was going to be joining USM, University of Santa Monica, for a spiritual psychology course. And I went, I was like, I don't know if that's my thing, man. That's a lot. And I'm like, I don't know if I want to go into that, and he was like, no, I think it'd be good. I was like, I don't know. And my aunt at the same time, who was a part of one of the first USM classes that was ever done, I believe it was in the 80s, with the same facilitators, no less.
Whoa.
Yeah, she goes, well, I think you should look into it. And she goes, here's my USM recording. And she sent it over to me. Yeah, and she said, here's me on stage. They asked me to come and speak because a lot of times they'll ask former classmates to come and share their experience. And I was sitting in my house, and I put this on YouTube, and I started watching it. And it was the first time in my life I had ever seen my aunt in a state of vulnerability. And I started crying.
Oh.
And I went, I need to heal that way. I need to work through this. I need to, I've got a lot of stuff that I've been carrying around for a very long time. I get emotional just talking about it.
Yeah.
And to even think about it just brings it back for me, and to see her in that state. And I called her up and I said, God, I didn't realize that you were ever in that state. And she goes, what do you mean? I said, well, I see you as infallible in a way. There's nothing you do wrong. You're always in a state of happiness. Like, your life is never upset in any way. She goes, yeah, that's not the case. I've been doing spiritual work for 30 years and I still work through stuff, Joe. She said, we're all human. You're still going to deal with things. Things are going to come up for you over your life. You're always going to have to deal with things. It's how you deal with them that changes. And I went, I need that.
That's powerful. It's the how you deal with them. I think people miss that too. They just chase that bliss, chase that flow state. And I don't care what spiritual path you're on. Humanity doesn't change. The human experience doesn't really all that change, but it's the how we approach it that does. That's powerful.
Yeah, they say in the class, the way you deal with the issue is the issue.
Ooh, there's a tweetable moment, people.
Yeah, that rings in my head every time I'm upset by
so good
something that really has no effect on my life. That rings in my head, definitely.
Wow. So you finished the certificate in spiritual psychology, and now you've got this program, which I'm just so excited about it. Tell me about Sporadic Warrior.
So we're in the beginning processes of it right now. What I've been doing is reaching out to some friends of mine who have done some work with this type of material and in this type of environment in the past. And what we're trying to do is come up with what I'm trying to do is come up with a meditation, community, fitness, and outdoors program for addicts only. And it can be addict of anything to meet and just go out. Now, there are a couple rules that have come forward for me right now on it. One being no glorification stories of your past, because that can trigger some people. So, I don't want to, I'm
disease
sure you
models.
I'm sure you did a lot of drugs. We all did, that's not what we're here about. I want to hear about your spirituality. I want to hear about your day to day. I want to hear about your life moving forward, your goals. I think goals are very important, and helping people set those goals is crucial in recovery.
Amen.
And also routine. I live my life by a very strict routine. I wake up, I meditate, and then I go to the gym every morning. Just having whatever, and you don't have to do that, but whatever your routine is, it could just be, waking up, having coffee, reading a newspaper, doing something positive to start your day. Whatever that routine is, have a routine.
Yeah. Psyche loves that. Routine and rituals are so good.
Yeah. So that's part of it. And then I wanted to introduce, since I'm in Colorado, but also this could go anywhere in the United States, just a little outdoor activities, because I think it's very good to get out in nature and ground. That. And a little bit of one-on-one coaching. Now, by one-on-one coaching, I think that instead of having a sponsor, one of the ideas I'm toying with right now is having a one-on-one dedicated counselor that's involved with you. So we can pair you up with a coach, an addiction counselor, something like that along those lines that will work with you. And that's the first step, by the way. Like, if you want to come in and be a part of it, and you're in your early stages of recovery, if you're later on in recovery, 5-10 years, and you don't want to be a part of that, that's your choice. But if you want to join Sporadic Warrior program within the first 3 to 6 months, I think that what we're going to do moving forward is having counselors there, or at least having access to a list of counselors. You need to talk to these people and have somebody there, so that when something does come up for you, you can immediately call that person, or at least you have a time, write it down, and remember that okay, this situation came up, there was a trigger. How am I going to work through it? Where does this actually lie inside of me? Where's the part of me that is upset? Where's the part of me that feels ashamed of this? Where's the part of me that is not in the loving at that moment that needs to move forward, and then work on that?
I love it. Once again, more parts language. It's not the all of you. So good. I've got my pom-poms out from, high school cheerleading. I'm really excited about this program. So you've mentioned God several times. Tell me, what is God to you?
Oh, well, I think in all fairness, I have to bring up the fact that for a very large portion of my life, I was an atheist. And I read a book, not probably 2 years ago, somewhere around there, a year and a half ago. And one of the first lines of the book was, it takes as much, actually in the book he says, I want to get the quote correct. It says, I was an atheist for most of my life until I realized it takes as much energy to not believe in God as it does to believe in God.
I've heard that one. It's a good one. Yeah.
And that kind of opened my eyes to it. And then I realized that I was angry at God for a very long time. But I couldn't, being the way that I was, I couldn't go right into God. I had to start with light, move into spirit, and then move into God, if that makes sense.
It does. It really does.
So little steps, little moments back into spirituality. It took me a minute. And then I had to move into a place of non-judgment against religion.
That's huge.
Because I was raised Jewish, Greek Orthodox.
Well, there's an interesting mix.
Exactly. My mother's Greek Orthodox Roman Catholic. My father was Jewish. I had religion thrown at me as a kid.
All directions, yeah.
Yeah. And so I learned I just came up with a discretion against it. I didn't believe in it. I was kind of rubbed the wrong way early on about it. And I just said, well, this is not for me. And it wasn't until meditation that I really got back in touch with God. And I think that it's a very important part of recovery, but I also understand that that's a huge step for a lot of people to move forward.
There's a lot of damage for a lot of us. A lot of spiritual abuse and religious trauma for sure.
Yeah.
And I think meditation and the mindful path is a great way to begin healing some of those wounds and to find your own spiritual path moving forward. Because we really are spiritual beings. And so to try and, even if someone identifies as an atheist, you still want to connect with something outside of yourself. That transcendence is spirituality. So
that's true.
Yeah. Sex, that's a spiritual act if you allow it to be.
Correct. Yeah. It's all the path. I just had so yesterday I was out hiking what they call a 14er in Colorado. It's a 14,000 foot mountain.
Wow. And
the guy who was with me opened up about his spirituality, and come to find out he was on the path to become a minister at one point in his life. And we ended up talking about God the entire way up. And I was like, wow, what are the chances of this happening? And I work with this guy, and to have him come out about this kind of stuff was amazing. And the conversation that we had, even though he's a pescatarian, and I don't associate with religion, I just associate as spiritual. We had an open conversation about God without any judgment. And that was the key.
Yes.
There was no judgment towards what he did in his life. He had no judgment towards what I did in my life. And I said to him, we're both going towards the same goal, just on different paths.
Right.
Yeah. And what's odd is a lot of the stuff that I didn't like about religion, he happened to agree with.
Yeah.
So
that's why I identify as an omnist now, but I know it saddens my very evangelical Christian parents.
Yes, it upsets my Jewish father as well. So
that's all right. Love them anyway. And I always tell them, what's fascinating is that it took me having to walk away from dogmatic religion to come back, and I have a newfound appreciation for my childhood faith and still incorporate a lot of those aspects of it. But I had to, heal the wounds of dogma first.
Yes.
Yeah.
For a lot of people, that's a very hard step for them. That's a very triggering word. The word God is a trigger in itself to a lot of people.
Yeah, it is. And so I also use God as spirit, whatever. The divine, the universe as a whole.
Yes, the universe. That's another one. I love the universe. I use the universe all the time. Definitely spirit. Mother, Father, God. Another one I use.
Yes.
Just, Om, whatever you want to use, whatever makes you connect is where it's at. It's what matters.
And I think one of the things I love most about your story is that it is through that connection with spirituality that really helped heal and integrate for you. It was the key for recovery, it sounds like.
Yes. The various, I don't want to downplay the recovery facilities I was in, but being sober and being happy are two different things.
Ooh, another great tweetable moment. Yes.
So you can be sober. I run into sober people all the time. They're not happy. Because they still got that stuff. They had to work through it. And working through it's not easy. It's not. It's real hard. It's really, really hard stuff. I don't ever tell anybody that anything that I've done spiritually in my life was easy. It's not. Stuff's going to come up for you that in your head you've thought of as a shameful moment in your life and carried around for years. I lived a lie of a life. People thought I'd never been arrested. They knew me as never doing drugs. They assumed I was a drinker that just went out with them and drank at night. They didn't realize that I've been drinking since 6 a.m. I lived that lie for years. And now I have people coming up to me going, wow, I had no idea.
Right.
And I go, yeah, addicts are good at hiding things when they need to. We can get around that kind of stuff. And I've had people call me numerous times. I've been sharing my story through Instagram. And I just recently started doing that. And for me, opening and stepping into that vulnerability has made a huge connection with some of the people I've known for the past that didn't know that side of me. And have called me up and they've confessed their own things to me. And they've been like, can you help me with this? I'm like, sure, of course.
Wow. It's amazing. I could talk to you for hours. So meaningful that we crossed paths and connected. Where can people hang out with you further? Is Instagram one of your favorites?
Instagram is one of my favorites, yes. If you're interested in any kind of coaching, you can always reach out to me at sporadicwarrior.com.
Fantastic.
And eventually that will be a full program site. But right now it's a one-on-one coaching site. Otherwise, if you just feel you need to connect in some way and need to listen to somebody, need somebody to kind of hear you or at least knows what's going on in your world, you can follow me on Instagram as well. And just be there, be a part of the world.
Yeah. So any final thoughts for the world listening to us right now? What is it you'd most want them to know?
That you don't need to feel pain in order to heal.
Oh God, yes. I can't say it better than that. I'm going to leave it at that. Thank you so much, Joe.
Thank you so much for having me. I had a great time.
Thanks for listening to the Sacred Psychology Podcast. I pray you found some inspiration and empowerment to go out and make this life the most fulfilling possible. You can follow Sacred Psychology on Facebook and YouTube. If you haven't yet, please go to Apple Podcasts and subscribe, rate, and review this podcast. Tag us on social media and let us know what you think as well. Please note that the information provided is not meant to convey professional, psychological, or medical advice. If you could use such services, I highly recommend seeking them out from someone you trust. To get in touch with me personally or to see how we might work together, please check out ariatherapy.com or talesfromatrapezoid.com. Until next time, everyone.